Literate Discussions with M. David Hornbuckle.
I'm M. David Hornbuckle, and we're here again today with Elizabeth Savage, a poet and teacher from Evansville, Indiana. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Hello, how are you?
Very good. How are you?
I'm good.
So today we're going to talk about the T.S. Eliot poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. So big picture, what is the most interesting thing to you about this poem? Why do you love this poem?
I love the tragedy of him at the end, especially, right? So the mermaids are singing, but not for him. I do not think they will sing to me. And then that carries right into the end. I have seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing the white hair of the waves blown back when the wind blows the water white and black. We have lingered in the chambers of the sea by sea girls wreathed with seaweed red and brown till human voices wake us and we drown. And that ending gets me every time. Sometimes I even cry when I read it. To feel that you have no foothold, no roots, right? Nothing is tethering you, and the sea is going to wash in. And the pronoun there is plural, collective, all of us. So from the speaker's point of view, we're drowning in this, and then, right, so there's the blank. Are we drowning in modernism? Are we drowning in social order? Are we drowning in romanticism? Are we drowning in, what is that thing? But we're losing our foothold to, and then there's another blank, right? To what matters, to the future, to the past. What is this thing that we don't have anymore?
Prufrock is a classic tragic character. We see him as this kind of a shy, tragic guy who's, he's watching the women come and go, talking to Michelangelo. He doesn't know what to say to them. He doesn't.
But he does in his head.
In his head, he does, but but he can't. But he can't make his move, right? He can't introduce himself. He can't tell any of these women how he feels.
Right.
He is totally in his head.
Yes, the first
all the time,
if you will.
It's right? Like that. It's and I think that this is an idea. The idea of solipsism, of only being able to kind of like process the world inside your mind, right, and without being able to see the perspective of anybody else, is very important to modernism in general. This solipsism is also like Prufrock's Achilles heel. It's how he can't get out of it. He can't get out of his head.
But also, not only can he not, he sees no value in trying to do so, because he's already measured out, right? You're measuring him with spoons, but I would make the argument, so is he. Mm-hmm. He already thinks he knows what we're going to say to him, and therefore he's not going to talk to us. Never one time does he consider that he might be wrong. Mm-hmm. He projects onto everyone else. That is not what I meant at all. Mm-hmm. And yet, that's not what I meant either, dude. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You never gave me a chance.
Right, but there's also like his like enormously repressed sexuality, right? The famous line, "Do I dare to eat a peach?"
I didn't know we would not be PG-13 here, mister.
This is for a college course.
Another favorite moment, you asked for a favorite moment. I love when I am pinned and wriggling on the wall. How should I begin to spit out all the buttons of my days and weeks? Right? So again, the idea of being pinned, which carries over to the conversation we had about manifestos. if I am hemmed in or feel as though I am, right? If you have pinpointed me, I can't ever shake that off. And it's interesting to me how many times in literature that idea comes up. So we could go all the way back to Hawthorne and Scarlet Letter and say that there is another making a boundary around a person and saying, I've measured you and you are this. And once I say that about you, you can't ever undo it. When he imagines that he has been pinned to the wall, he hemmed his own self in. He is like almost double projecting, because again, I would say to him, you never gave me a chance to know you. You walked around in this space. You were completely cerebral and insular, and imagined conversations you were having with us, and you decided how we measured you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if you're wrong?
Yeah, I mean, he imagines himself as a crab, right? The famous line, "I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of silent seas,"
Yes.
which is such an amazing 2 lines of poetry right there.
Yes.
Just the imagery and the sound devices and everything, but also how much it tells us about his character.
Interesting that he made the seas silent. Again, the modern idea, distanced from something larger than self, closed off again because you can't hear the sound of the sea. And you know, perhaps you can't hear it when you're on the bottom. Never been there, don't know. But
Well, it's true that your hearing is impeded when you're underwater, right? And that ties into the whole thing of the drowning with the mermaids at the end of the poem.
which is also interesting. So if we wanted to make a connection to the epigraph, so there's his interesting, I am no prophet and here's no great matter. I have seen the moment of my greatness flicker. And that flickering is a direct nod back to Canto 27 with the voices that are flickering inside the flame. And he goes on in that stanza there, and I have seen the eternal footman hold my coat and snicker, and in short, I was afraid.
Just for my students' sake, I want to clarify that is from Dante's Inferno,
Oh, yeah,
right?
sorry.
Canto 27 of Dante's Inferno, and it is the epigraph of that's in Italian at the beginning of the poem.
So the eternal footman holding his coat and snickering. So again, he is a mockery that he's making of himself as he is having this conversation in a flame that flickers. And that last, and in short, I was afraid, is a moment of humanity, embracing the human condition of fear. And all of his walls are down. However, he's in a flame when his walls are down. So he's still, one threshold or plane removed from us because he put himself in a flame in order to have a sphere.
What else do you like about this poem? Are there any other lines that you always go back to?
Do I dare disturb the universe?
Oh, yeah, to disturb the universe. I mean, that goes back to what you were saying before, right? This is what he doesn't want to do. He doesn't want to intrude into anybody else's reality. He wants to just stay boxed in his own sort of solipsistic mindset.
And that is directly followed up with, in a minute there is time for decisions and revisions, which a minute will reverse. And I would point to, again, almost a disconnect. So when he looks at you and I in this restaurant or in the seedy bar or wherever it is on the streets, mm-hmm. he doesn't get it that you and I also have decisions and revisions that a minute have reversed, right? We are also overthinkers. We are also planners. None of us is perfect. And he is so caught up in his own disconnect that he's spinning our record for us, and it's like it's playing backward. He doesn't get it.
Wow. Only a poet would make that that metaphor. Spinning our record backwards. All right.
To me, that again belies the tragedy. So imagine living your whole life. I have him as middle-aged-ish. Imagine living your life that long and being that wrong about it. How lonely, how sad. And I don't mean sad and just, like the opposite of happy. It's sad all the way, almost, I'm going to say pitiful or pathetic.
That's the word that was coming to mind for me too, pathetic. With like explicit reference to the root pathos.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also kind of want to meet him. I do. I want to meet him.
Do you think you could bring Prufrock out of his shell?
No.
Out of his crab shell?
No, I don't think I could, but I think we've all met him on some level, right? We know him. And the degree to which we have compassion might say something about our own humanity, which is another thing that I read when I read this every time. It's almost like a humanity check for you, Mrs. Savage. Are you still human? Do you still have compassion? And would you still want to at least try to reach across his self-prescribed divide and invite him to sit among the rest of us and actually have that conversation for real and not just carry on in your head?
Got a couple of minutes left. Is there anything else before we go that you want to talk about?
Do you ever touch on the Lazarus part when you teach it?
About line 90 something, to say, I am Lazarus, come from the dead, come back to tell you all, I shall tell you all.
Yes.
All right, what are your thoughts about that section?
It ties back to, again, in a very strange way, very loose connection, if you will, to the epigraph. Right, Dante's Inferno and Purgatorio and Paradiso are the journey of a man in his middle age, trying to rectify his life to find the fullness of glory and see the face of God. So if we're having a character who is in his roughly middle age, right? He talks about his bald spot, and he talks about other things that lead us to his age. Again, about this midlife time period for a man. I think that is a nod back to discovering faith or rediscovering faith or making a connection to faith. It's also interesting that he wants to be Lazarus, right? I am Lazarus, come from the dead, come back to tell you all. I shall tell you all. That is not what I meant at all. And it would have been worth it, and he goes on. He is making the assertion there of, again, this struggle or this tug of war with, okay, what happens? We can imagine him practicing in front of a bathroom mirror, right? That's fogged up. What happens if I say, no, darn it, I'm me. Here I am. I'm real. Talk to me, right? So you're finally going to get the cojones to talk to this chick with the bracelets and her ankles and how the dress falls around her ankles, which is also interesting, a nod to the time of what they were wearing, when the ankle is the most sexy thing I can imagine, that or your wrist or your neck. So he's going to finally get this courage, and he's going to say, I this is me, I'm rising, right? So this is his moment. And then nothing. I got nothing. Yeah,
Yep.
he's in the bathroom. And that was that.
thanks again for zooming with me today. This is a lot of fun. I could probably talk about this poem for another hour, but we don't have that kind of time.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Literate Discussions with M. David Hornbuckle.